Have the recording. And who's on iPhone today? Hello? Is that any of you? Okay.
Mystery person.
Yeah. You want to say hello, mystery person? Yeah, that's my thought too. Okay. Unfortunately, we're going to remove them because they can't say hello. Yeah, I had a feeling it could be somebody I didn't want on the
Well,
call.
if they want to, they'll come back.
Yeah.
If they'll think they got booted and they'll come back.
Mhm.
They'll think that they got disconnected, right? Like their phone acted up and they'll dial back in.
Isn't that the name of a horror movie? Sometimes they come back.
Oh.
I don't want to know how that goes.
Okay, let's talk community. What do you guys want to talk about this week?
This is my first time joining this group, so.
Oh, okay.
Ask your questions. Go.
Yeah,
No,
we
I was gonna say,
usually
I want to listen to what other people say before I
Oh,
throw
before you
something
ask.
up.
yeah, well, so normally with these calls, we just kind of bring up anything that we're thinking about, obstacles, barriers, or just, things that we're trying to brainstorm or work through, and just kind of work together through it, to figure out what we're trying to accomplish and help reach our goals. And if we don't, then I just launch into some kind of sermon of sorts on whatever is on my mind. So trust me, you want to bring up topics.
Ah,
All right, I'll mention something, and it's crowdsourcing ideas then. So I have a community of practice. It's a lot of forums that are support related. What I found is I launched a fun club. And with the fun club, you have to log in every week to get a puzzle, to get this and that. And it's making people come in more. So I'm actually seeing more forum activity, whether they're related or not. I can only make guesses, but it's something that we're doing that I'm seeing gaining popularity on. I made a very big mistake this month. This month I said, I suck at chess. See how fast you can beat me. Email me for a board. I only had 15 people who wanted to play chess. They got 2 moves a day. So that means 30 moves of chess. And I've been playing for 2.5 hours a day, playing chess, including the weekends. And I want to vomit. And it's never been such an ego blow to lose on so many fronts all at the same time. It's horrible. So I want to make a more low touch game. So I've done things like Sudoku puzzles and nonograms. I tried a coloring contest, which failed spectacularly. So if anybody has any low touch game ideas, I would love them.
you might go for Wordle and Quordle and Hurdle. There's a Hurdle too.
What's a I know Wordle, what's Quordle and
Quordle is Wordle times 4. So you have 4 words in 9 moves.
okay.
And Hurdle is music.
Ooh.
It's H-E-A-R, Hurdle. I guess Hurdle.
What were you going to say, Joel?
I was going to say one. I would say don't look at it like ego blows. Look at it like you're having a great time and members are winning. Let's reframe that for one. 2. So 2, I would say I love the idea of like a coloring book or like thing. I understand that you said it did not go so well. However, do you know why it didn't go well? Because if you know why, could you correct it, do it again? And it could be something fun for like, for example, I know Lessonly, what they did previously was like actually send out like a legit coloring book, not one, but like a book of a few things and like a pack of crayons. Could you send that out to members who wanted to participate? And then it's like, maybe it's 4 or 5, depending on the number of Fridays in a month. And every Friday you had to post like this one from the coloring book.
Yeah, I think the problem is that my group is a group of engineers,
Oh,
and I think that they're just not into that. We do have community mascots that I illustrate. I used to illustrate for comic books and things like that, and so I have done things like I've done search and finds,
mhm.
which God help me, illustrating a huge search and find. But I've done things like that, and those have been popular. But anything that kind of requested them to be creative outside of a technical capacity or a logic capacity, those are the ones that seem to fail. Anything that's logic oriented are the things that tend to be successful.
Good to know.
Is that like the Wikipedia game where you go around, like you try to see how many clicks you have to make to get to a certain Wikipedia page?
Oh, I've never heard of that before.
I've only done it once, and from what I remember, it was something like start at this page, and whoever gets to this page first is the winner. You're going to want to look it up because that's a really bad explanation of it. But I would look at, so one, I have a customer that I work with that has a bunch of engineers, and their off-topic forum is so much fun. Like we just come up with the craziest, they come up with the craziest things. Like one day it was, what's a better M&M, the regular M&M or the mini M&M, and why? But other times they're sharing things like there's a crab that wears like makes a hat out of a sponge, and so it's just like maybe they could share funny, interesting things like that on a certain topic. But I'd also check and see like what Hacker News, like anything on there that looks fun, or even talking to the community manager at Slack, Emily, I think her name is, because she works with a lot of these people and has a lot of fun ideas too. I can try to find her LinkedIn. I don't have a ton of ideas around how to get more fun in your community. I probably should try to do that more, but I like the idea that you're doing like a weekly thing to get people in there, because at my last position, before I started doing consulting, I was working on a campaign for come into the community 10 minutes a week and like help your career grow. Because the more I'm in community, the more I see like people share so much and brainstorm together and get through their, their obstacles, and you're just going to hit your goals so much faster when you have a whole group of people helping you get there by answering your questions. So I love the idea of reinviting them to the community each week. And I think there's a lot for that group, like the logical stuff is really exciting. I mean, the best Sudoku times, who can do a Roku, or not a Roku, but a Rubik's Cube and things like that. I love doing a Rubik's Cube.
Videoing Rubik's Cube is a pretty cool one.
That would be fun.
I think something else, it just kind of makes me think about like 2 other things. One, going back to your other point around like we're seeing more engagement. Are you seeing more engagement on, I believe you said Fridays, when you said that people are in the community for these fun things, right?
I haven't noticed. Let
That could
me,
be-
that's a good data point.
Yeah, because if you're seeing the spike on Fridays, then it's okay. We know that when people are in here for the fun activity and they're contributing to that first or in their time on Fridays, they're also spending more time. Maybe it's a mentality around Fridays. Like maybe people want to have more fun heading into the weekend, so they're willing to spend 30 minutes versus 10 that we see earlier in the week. That could be something interesting. Two, I think going to similarly to like what your point is with this and what Mary was talking about, I think that it's really important to bring in rituals into your community, have them at companies like town halls, or share a highlight and a low light every week, whatever that may look like, but bring in rituals, because then it creates habits. And you can like then further experiment also once you have habits too.
I have also seen in the past, I'm going to put a link in here, when I was looking at templates on Miro, they have a lot of different like games and things you can do virtually with remote groups and stuff. So I put it in the chat, and you can just scroll through at your, your leisure and look at things and see if anything would be fun for you.
I have a Miro account too, so
Oh, this is cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I had just come across it by accident one day, and I was like, "Oh, this is great." I tried to do it a little bit with customer marketing. The first time I did what I call our coffee breaks, which is the Friday calls. But I used Butter for the platform, and it was so different for people that it was hard to get adoption. And everyone kind of ignored the on-screen question to get started. And that was it. That was the one time I did it. And that was it. So it is something to revisit. And like you said, Joel, with the that routine, or doing things that people expect, it does help with driving people to the community. And I also find programs with very specific objectives, like bring your obstacles to Friday calls, and through customer marketing, advocacy, and community will help you overcome that obstacle, is what I say to a lot of people. I don't really do that in the marketing of it because I get enough people to come that it's always a good call, but it really helps people think, okay, this day I'm going to go see this value. And especially as you start to move like upstream and think about other people you want, the higher levels, VPs and CIOs or whatever, they need to make sure they're going to get X value from their time, especially when it comes to community, because you come into communities and you can spend a lot of time sifting through to find that good content. And if you know your community well, then you should know what to highlight and make it easy for them to find, to get that value, be able to contribute and get back out in the time that they have available. Hi, Kathy, welcome. We're just talking about fun games for Nicole to play with her
cool.
community once a week. And that made me think, oh, I don't do enough fun stuff in our community.
Did we
Jan
have
is
ideas?
running. Jan has the donut app turned on, and it asks a question, like a fun question every
Oh, yeah?
couple of days. That things like, what's your favorite ice cream? Or what was the one last week?
Does
if you
it
could leave
share
on
it with the
vacation.
group?
Yeah, it goes into a special channel in the Slack channel.
Oh, okay.
Is that what's happening on the CMA Weekly? All those
No,
cute
that one
questions?
is in Jan Young's TCM one,
Oh.
TCS one.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think I knew
Yeah,
that.
my channel's screwed up.
I had a really good call earlier today, and I'm just throwing this out there because it was talking about scaling relationships, and I think that's important in community, customer success, customer marketing, all of that, with
Mhm.
Jermaine Edwards. And he started off the call a little funky where he was like, write down one of your obstacles with your customers, your ideal customer. And by the end of the call, I'm going to help you have a plan to overcome that obstacle. And I was like,
Oh.
okay, so we're having one of those calls where it's, some
Right.
gimmicky thing and hire me at the end of the call.
Mhm.
It was a great call. And he talked about community. And it tied some things together that for me, I've been 13 years in community now, and it tied some things together with that and personal branding, where he talked about, it's really hard to get past that 150 people that you have relationships with. So what you want to do is you want to build your reputation so that people know, okay, you go to Mary to talk about this, or you go to this person, Joel, to talk about this. And it was a really helpful thing to think about in both how we address community and help each other connect, but also in scaling those ideas and getting more people to connect, more people that follow you and all of that. And I don't know, I wanted to share that because I thought it was a really good perspective for community and customer marketing, because so many people are talking about scaling customer marketing, advocacy, and customer success.
So, at least from my experience, like what we did in past roles, as well as like what I've seen at other orgs, because I'm in the community space, is especially when you have something like an ambassador program or champions, whatever the label is, often there is an element of personal branding as part of it, whether it's speaking at events, within the community, the opportunity to get pulled and speak at the company's events too, content, quotes for social around like a specific topic, sharing their thoughts in like other unique ways with their community members to, again, one, showcase like their value and like their expertise, and therefore by them sharing it in your space, you're also saying that your space has quality people in it that provides me with hopefully regular value too, to keep coming back. Because like fun and all is great, don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
I think most people go to professional communities for something along the lines of like professional development, learning, and helping them ultimately grow their personal career. And personal branding is a great element to help them do those things, like showcasing it and growing their brand.
That is exactly what I was just talking to another community member or community manager about an hour ago. I had reached out because he has a decent sized community of marketing and salespeople, and I wanted to know how he went about like getting sponsors and things like that, just to kind of have some ideas for the future, because at some point I'd love to make some money from what I do, but I don't really want to charge the people who participate. So it was good to have that conversation because he started telling me about something he's working on, and he's like, I want to amplify how much content we're making, but I don't know how. And I was like, top contributors program, like, you give them the spotlight, you show, like, help them with their exposure and things like that, and they'll want to participate. And he was like, why did I never think about these things? And I'm like, it happens to all of us.
I think as someone who worked at a community where community was the product that had sponsors, I will equally say it's a lot more than most people think
Yeah,
before
it
going
is.
down that road.
It
Not
is.
necessarily something for today's conversation, but just wanted to throw that out there for you too.
Yeah, I worked at Sales Hacker when we shifted from Sales Hacker, the media site, to Sales Hacker, also a community. And we had someone full-time that just managed sponsorships.
Colin, right?
Well, Colin is the head of
Okay.
like all
So it's
of Sales Hacker, but it was actually Mikey.
okay.
That, well, it was Scott when I first
Yep.
joined, but Scott trained Mikey and
Gotcha.
yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yep, it was fun there. I liked it. All right, what other topics in community can we talk about today?
Does anybody have any conflicts within their organization? So for example, I was thinking of launching an MVP program in the community, but then the sales team has MVPs for partners. Partners also play in the community, right? And then there's another program, and then there's another program, and they all kind of come together. And only when I started doing this did people realize that there's overlap and there's confusion and this and that and the other thing. Has anybody experienced that and then untwined it?
It
We
is.
saw it a little bit with the concept of champions, certifications, and badging, where everybody was giving credit in a lot of different places. So we decided that community was going to be the place to unify all of that, so that everything was visible in community. I don't know how long it's going to take to make that all happen. We haven't gotten that far yet, but
How did you pitch it? Because what I'm finding is that it's a lot of people's babies. You know, it's like it's my baby, and I came up with it, and this is how I envisioned it, and they are really married to their particular solution.
I didn't take away anything from anyone. They get to still manage their little piece of it. But all we're doing is we're saying that we need to unify the look and feel of it so that it is consistent across the organization, because consistency is the thing that for us drives a lot of what we do, right? So that was my little in word, was that we need to make all of these things consistent. They don't have to be the same, because they can't be, just because they're being run by different teams for different reasons, but they have to be consistent in look and feel. So since we are using community as our communications hub to everyone, it makes the most sense to funnel all of the accolades that are associated with it through community. And so we're redesigning badges and color coding things, so that if it's gold, it's going to be from product. If it's the aqua color, it's community. If it's the fuchsia color, it's coming from education, right? From the academy. Support, right? Pretty much everybody who is anywhere with customers was doing something to recognize them. And I said, we can't have all of these disjointed things, because we need a unified message. That's what this is all about. And so I didn't have too much of a problem convincing them that we needed to do it. Getting it done is going to be harder, just because we're strapped. Where everybody's working really thin already. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know how long it's going to take. We haven't put the plan up together yet.
Christine, how do you sort it when you've got a topic that really falls in two categories, say product and community? If there was such a thing, do you just talk it through and draw straws, or?
My basic is, if who's got the most skin in the game. So if product wants it really bad, they can have it, as long as we're sticking to the basic rules that we establish, right? Consistency in messaging, consistency in distribution, and consistency in the way that we communicate all of that to the customer base.
So
So
you have some kind of like shared file or something where the different teams like enter in what they're doing, so you know not to do that, or some kind of thing like that?
Not yet. We're still solidifying what the details are for all of the babies, right, that everybody's
Yeah,
got. Because they've so far, the biggest challenge was they didn't want to lose it. And I said, you're not losing it. All we're going to do is aggregate it into one place. So you still get to manage your piece. You still get to take care of it. And so what we'll probably end up with is a Monday board
mhm,
in the long run that will help us track when the communications are published, so that we're not duplicating those efforts in
Mhm.
multiple communications to customers. And our first meeting is next Monday.
You said a Monday board? What's a Monday board?
Yeah. Monday.com is an online project management tool,
It's like Asana.
like Asana.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Asana.
So I'll take a different approach. I understand the why organizations may be very inclined to let people have their babies because they love them and they're very passionate about them. However, I think like you described many more than I feel like is necessary from your brief highlight, Nicole.
There are more.
Oh no.
Ooh.
So my general interpretation of this would be like, you need to almost start doing like a fact-finding mission of like, what's the name of the program, who's the owner, like the literal person, and then the broader function, going then into like, what does it look like? How is it measured? All of it. Like, what business outcome does this align to? I think like I'm envisioning really just a robust, like beautiful Google sheet of like where you have conversations and you understand all these elements of it from every single person. Because what you said, unless you're something, and I'm going to start spitballing, like unless you're like a Salesforce or an Atlassian or something like that, where you may legitimately need a different thing for all these different groups that you like serve and interact with regularly. But if you're not, I think that it makes more sense to understand like the impacts and then scale it into a more like clear, maybe there are 2 to 3, and in those 2 to 3 they're supposed to serve different things, if that
2 to
makes sense.
I didn't, 2 to
Oh.
3, what, like publications or?
Like
Oh.
business outcomes, for example, like if you're like Nicole mentioned that sales has one, I assume that the sales version of an MVP program is probably something like customers who they can tap for testimonials and like customer conversations. Okay, so if that's the case, maybe there's one where it's called MVPs, but it includes that and partners, because partners could sometimes also be brought into sales conversations to support like how they support, whether it's an integration standpoint or a servicing standpoint, in addition to what you all offer. So I would look at it like, look, it can be called MVPs because it's super fun, kind of flashy. We want to showcase these people, and it's supposed to be this resource for sales, but equally it also is a resource for the community of these people, might be featured in content. We might do partner events if our community is heavy into product and customers. You described earlier, though, that yours is one of practice, so I'd be a little hesitant on how much you would do and how much product/customer things you would push. But there is a line, I think, in which you could have one program serve both, for example, and then you can have a different one for if product has one that's very focused around like road mapping, ideation, those sorts of things, that should be a whole different program. Because there you're talking mostly about like decision makers and ROI, but then you're also talking about like adoption, ease of use. So it's kind of two different groups of people, but they should both collectively inform product road mapping, hopefully.
I think
I
what,
take sense. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
I think so. What we're looking at here is overall, we have this customer marketing, customer success, even post sales with like expansion and advocacy and all these different customer areas that we've been so siloed in B2B SaaS, in SaaS, whatever, in our space. And so I think what we're working towards is more CCOs, customer chief officer, whatever. But until that happens, we're still in this very phased approach. So what Christine said is like, yeah, that's to get started and get things moving. That's where you can start. Like you take these things because she can't handle all of those programs. She can't adopt those until there's headcount to do that. So it's taking what you can, the resources that you have and making it the most of it for the customer as well as the company. Because moving into what Joel says, like that's another phase of it. Once it gets to the point where it's like, okay, we just have so much of this going on that we need somebody to come in and really kind of take over. So one of the customers I have was everything was so segmented. They had salespeople that had references, they had customer marketing people that had references, they had the community that drew references, people for references all over the place. And that was just references. When it came to reviews, we literally had teams all over the world that were working on different companies for reviews, like Dresner or G2 or whatever, Trust Radius. And it's such a mess. And they needed somebody to come in and be that director of customer marketing. And I think that will even grow into just customer, VP of customer experience or something, because we're all trying to do these things and really finding that value in the customer. I think community is a great place for that, to centralize it, because you can make groups for just certain types of advocates or the references, or, like Christine said, you can show all the badges in one place. That's a great place for it. You're going to have people that just don't want to join, and that's fine. You don't want to join, you don't have your badges, whatever, but it's a phased approach. And I think that's important to keep in mind, because it's not Christine or Joel's way. It's more of like step 1 and then step 3 or 4. So that's the way I see it from talking to a lot of different companies with their approach. And honestly, most people, at least, I would say my customers are 100 to 200 million a year. Like it's a wide range of where they are with these programs, where people are just like, I need something for these customers to give them value and get value from them. So I'm throwing it together. And then there's the other side of that, which is the internal alignment. And it's a mess everywhere. People are doing their best with what they can and trying to really break down silos, but you are not alone, is what I'm trying to say.
It sounds like, Mary, what you were just saying, is somebody needs to be driving the bus on the overall output of the combined teams.
Yeah, for sure. But that's really hard to get even
Yeah.
like now, because if you're coming in, you're saying, well, we need a head count to drive our bus. And they're like, we just slashed head counts 7% across the board. You're not only not getting head count, you probably just lost people, and you need to do everything you can to make up for it.
Well, I guess that's sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess that's part of why I kind of took my approach of Nicole had made it sound like that there were so many that almost sounded like in excess. There's lack of alignment and communication,
Yeah,
which is
for
why I
sure.
think kind of this like listening to her and just better understanding who's doing what everywhere as like a starting point is necessary, because if you can also combine programs and set them up, look, this is customer, this is partner, but they all live within this one bigger program. It's
Right.
easier to set up like programmatic structures.
That's
Yeah.
my dream, is there would be an MVP program, partner track,
Yep.
customer track, community track, and maybe some of those things are consistent, but then there's these additional things, and then what you get as an MVP in each track will change.
Depends.
So maybe you're one in the
Right.
partner track, maybe you're in the community track too, but you're going to get different benefits
Mhm.
for participating in them. In my mind, that's my hope and dream. And
Yeah.
I am trying to do a listening tour. My hope is to say, all right, here's your list of what you're doing. Here's your list of how they qualify everybody. Here's what's the same.
Mhm.
You know, here's what's different. How can we marry everything?
I mean, I think I'm gonna go back to a little bit of earlier and just say like I'm not as nice potentially, where everyone needs to keep their baby, of like sometimes it's not gonna be marrying stuff. Sometimes you're gonna need to like cut. Like if especially if you all like if your business did go through like layoffs or can't fundraise right now or whatever, so you're trying to be really intentional, I would focus more on like the consistency piece that Christine said earlier, the efficiency piece, and then lastly, like the scalability. Because like you want to build things, especially in community, but I would imagine it applies equally to like customer marketing too, and these types of advocacy programs. They want to build things not just for today, but also for like two future like Nicoles. Imagine your team grew by 2 in 3 years. Could this program still be supported well? Or if you set it up really well today, could those two people be doing like one focused on events across those different groups? Could one be then focused on content and bringing in like those customers and partners and product focused groups of people like in and community members into content? I think that like I would focus more on those things and create like a really strong structure today for the program. But that's just again my personal view on it.
I think I think the parents need to keep the babies somehow. If they go through your department, Joel, like they deserve some kind of cookie for like a lot of credit and a lot of our amazing product team is doing this, read this, and something, because people need recognition. They don't need like something great that they did get taken off their desk and moved to some other person's desk. I think you have to honor the people, part.
I have to say, oh, sorry, please go ahead, Kathy.
I was going to say something about what it happens after it's created, and it might go through customer marketing, or it might go up to the guy that's driving the bus or the woman that's driving the bus. I don't know. I just know that people need to somehow keep their babies.
I'm not for like not having people like involved. I think just being realistic of like we have to be almost like bluntly honest, though, that if there are as many as like Nicole kind of made it seem like, which to me is kind of like not good, unless you're a Salesforce or something where you need to have all those 80 million.
Yeah, we have a problem where in the company we're so siloed, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand doeth.
Yeah.
So people have this, like, we all have the same great idea, but nobody tells anybody else, so everyone does it on their own.
So, oh,
Why don't you guys come together and
The difficult part is that my company is a company that acquires companies. And
Ugh,
so
I hate
everything
that.
is built in a silo. And so it's a matter of integrating acquisitions without upsetting their current customer base or their current experience. Or it's a matter of, it being somebody's baby, or it's a matter of just a complete conflict of interest or of repetition. Like, so if I'm awarding for something and you're awarding for something, people are earning double prizes for the same thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
There's a lot of, it's just built in mess.
yeah,
And I say that with all the love, like my corporate culture is awesome. The people I work with
Yeah.
are awesome. It's just that it's structurally set up to have a lot of duplication of effort.
I think it's a really good approach, like, and that's why I like these calls where we can discuss different approaches to do this. Is one, like, you have that Christine's approach where it's very slim. It's like, I'm gonna find out what everybody else is doing and we'll let them keep that, but we're gonna silo it into one place. And then Joel's where it's like, listen, we've got to be like, we have to be honest about this and really tie this crap together because it's not working for the customer. So I think there's probably someplace in between that you'd be able to start, like listening, going on that listening tour and seeing what are people doing and where can we work together and bring more of those customers into a program and let the partners and the references be a part of one program for now until they can get their own split approaches. I think that helps because, and I'm partially with you, Joel. I mean, I like the MVP approach of let people keep what they have and just like, let's bring it together. But we also have to think about the long term of the company because at the end of the day, they're the ones that have to, pay the bills. And I like getting my bills paid. So, but I would also say that the approach where you talked about like, oh, the partners will have this and the references will have this or the customers will have this. I recently tried to integrate with our community at one of the companies, and we are integrating with them from customer marketing and advocacy into with the community. But one of the things that community first asked for was, well, I want to see what the life cycle or what this looks like if a customer decides, yes, I want to sign up for advocacy or I want it to do XYZ. And it's just so all over the place because when you go into some kind of customer marketing, a lot of it can be very one-on-one based on what you want and, pick your own adventure. And so I'd keep that in mind too, because there will be overlap with some things, and you're going to want to design it as a pick your own adventure instead of just like, oh, you can do this because you're a partner, you can do this because you're a community member. So it's something to keep in mind. But I think overall everyone's right because we're all coming from very different perspectives and opportunities. And even with what you're saying, Kathy, about, letting people keep their babies, these are the ones that the customers are building relationships with. So at the very least, there might need to be some kind of approach where we're bringing teams together to knock down those silos and work together on projects that they can meet new customers and really help the relationship with the company grow in a way where they continue to keep growing, without just taking it from someone and being like, hey, it was nice to see you
Yeah.
all, but move along.
so questions. Now that we know better understanding of the structure of your organization, Nicole, one question: does community go across all the companies? Or okay, so that's good. Two, I would say then if you also created like an across the board MVP program, for example, to call it with different tracks, maybe sub tracks within it, so it's still a little bit choose your own adventure. As Mary was saying, then it also actually like helps the business, I would argue, because it creates like structure for when slash if another company or future companies were to be acquired, that then it's like, okay, this is how we do it. And this is then where we would put your programs into our program. And you could even go as far to say of like, we're going to do a customer, like a MVP program kickoff, or maybe do like 2 small events throughout the year for any new acquisitions and any new members who have joined. And it could be across all the different like tracks of it. So then you can bring like your more product focused customers together. You can bring your customer advocates together. You can bring your partners together. You can tell stories. You can ideate. They can do like little previews. They can have networking, whatever else. But I would challenge this very much in a way of like, this is a unique opportunity, I would argue, against most of at least what you've shared so far of like how the companies operate to actually be together. And this could be something that would fit very well into like a story, which I assume you all are trying to do with this approach of like, we're better together the more products you buy across the different companies, right? So I would look at it that way of like, you could actually do a lot for the business by bringing things together into a structured program. I believe in you. You got it. it.
I needed to hear
Get
that
him.
today.
Go get him.
Go get him.
I love this. This is a really good conversation, at least from my point of view. And that's what matters, right? What else are we doing in community right now? Well, then I will ask you, what could I do better in the community? I'm going through some steps right now to really think about my focus and what I'm trying to do in both my consultancy stuff that I haven't really fully established yet and the community itself. And I love doing all of this community stuff. But I've noticed that I'm not exactly driving it to a specific destination. And I think that might be more a good idea to start thinking about. So if you've been in the community and you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
I'll start and say that like I'm coming from the community side, not customer marketing. So atypical audience or like member. But I would say with that, part of the big why is a shift I'm seeing in community roles that are fewer roles around communities of practice, which is where I've spent more of my time in, and more focused now around customers and product, and therefore customers anyway. So I kind of wanted to learn more about community meets customer marketing and like that intersection, because that's new to me. I've only done like very, very minute parts of this, and I cannot emphasize just how minute they are. For reference, so I mean, I have many thoughts and many things I've learned from reading, speaking to peers, having guests on the podcast I host on community, but never actually doing it. It's different secondhand learning versus firsthand learning. So I'm personally just trying to really scale up my like learning in this side, because I think especially during like economic tough times, community is going to be default for product and customers, less so brand. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And yeah, you're right. So having only discovered customer marketing and advocacy probably 2.5, 3 years ago, I would say that um, sorry, I just saw the comment, I like your cat. I would say that people that come from community and have experience running communities for a while have a big, what is it, leg up, whatever it's called, for customer marketing and advocacy. Because in community, you've already driven all of the breaking down silos, all of the finding as much value internally to take it externally and then bringing it back internally. You have all of the customer marketing aspects, really, because you've had to break down life cycles and see where to promote the community and how to get people interested in joining the community and getting them to come back and engage. And when I look at this, and you've done advocacy too to get people in your community, sharing about your community, whatever. So when you come back into this and advocacy, it's like, oh, okay, this is community management on a smaller level, because it's really about building, for me, a group of advocates that whether or not I need them to connect with each other, I still have to treat them as a group to be able to scale that at any level. So I have to keep in mind all of those things that I did for community, the relationship building, the newsletters, the tagging and reaching out to people and, helping them find value. But I can put a little bit more one-on-one in there, and that makes a big difference. So just in my first real try with this, with customer marketing and building a community for advocacy, like the goals, the metrics were off the charts because of all of that community experience that I'd had. We had 70 people that were in our program for RefReg, like in our RefReg reference program, within the first 6 months of like running RefEdge. But when I started the community, within the first 3 months, we had over 180 people that did some kind of active advocacy. And I'd also say that where you are, like coming from community, think of those things that you've done with advocacy as customer marketing and advocacy, and put that on your resume, because community, even in our space right now with people getting laid off, so many people in customer marketing and advocacy are looking at building a community and don't know how. And I'm not saying that in a way that like, oh, they couldn't do it. Absolutely, they could, but it doesn't have the same level of your years of experience of just delivering value at scale. And to bring that into customer marketing now, you can say, I help customer success at scale, customer advocacy at scale, and community, and even customer education to a point, because people are coming in, and if you know how to curate that content well, you're coming in there. So all of a sudden, being a community manager, where 2 years ago we were like so hot to get, that's becoming a thing now, again, in customer marketing, even in this weird space of time where it's like people are getting laid off. There's a lot more contract opportunities. And it's because we're trying to combine these different actions of success and education and community and advocacy and really drive with the customer. So you're in a good place. So keep that in mind, because there are not a lot of people in customer marketing doing community well yet. They're learning, and they're great people, and I love them. And Christine is building a community too, and she's doing a great job. But there's a lot of overlap there that we just didn't realize we had. I hope that's helpful.
Yes. No, it's definitely like interesting to hear. It's funny. I can talk to my friends and be like, oh, if you like tilt your experience, it really fits like this kind of thing too. You just have to know like the language to talk about it in,
Mm-hmm.
talk about it in their language so that they also understand that you have experience doing this skill. Hearing someone else talk to me about mine, I'm like, oh God. So this is what it feels like to be on the other side of one of my calls.
No, it's a good
Some of my
thing though,
friends.
because it's
Oh
like,
no, it's
We're
like
gonna-
great. It's super helpful. Yeah. I'm not
I-
saying it in like a bad way at all.
go ahead, Christine.
Shannon and I are going to talk go to market in the next 3 vlogs that we do, where how customer education and customer marketing support go to market
Mm-hmm.
for the customer side, right? Because we have a tendency to forget them. Go to market is something that we always think about as demand gen, pre-sales stuff, and it's not, right? It's all of that stuff still needs to be done for the customers as well. And Joel, I think that the community plays a huge role in that, in
Mhm.
just being able to leverage those connections to get the word out, which is mostly what go to market is.
No, definitely. And I can also understand and see that too. And for whatever it's worth, at Lattice at least, we actually had someone who is director, I believe, of customer demand. That's your
Oh,
little bit of
yay,
inspiration on that.
someday.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
gotta jump, guys. Got another
Okay.
call.
Bye.
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 Well, we can keep talking, or we can also go and get on Friday's call, or there might be one. Thursday's call is at noon Eastern time with Joel Kletke talking about case studies. So that'll be interesting. And then Friday, I'm not sure what's going on Friday. I think Jan Young is coming from customer success. So we're going to talk about NPS and customer surveys, but we always end up talking about lots more topics. So, yeah, I enjoyed this call. I
too.
think sometimes we forget, or companies just don't realize how much a good community, a well-run community, can impact their business. And because so many people fail at doing it, it's often looked at as like, oh yeah, we're gonna hire a community manager and just see what we can do, or community not for us, or something like that. But it's, yeah, I think there's a lot of room for community to really help our space grow even more.
Yeah. That's at least why, like, impacted by a layoff recently, I've
Mhm.
been looking and like speaking with companies during the process for a new role. And if I can't tell from the job description, I'm actually asking, like, what are the business outcomes you're looking to achieve by having a community? And sometimes the outcomes that I hear don't match. Like, they'll fit a community of practice, not a customer or product focused one. So that tells me that they don't even understand community and like how to design it to then impact the outcome or outcomes that they are looking to see. So it's like a lot of education, I think.
It
And
is, but
more.
I just want to say, I think those companies can sometimes be really big opportunities to own it. So you have to be
Yeah.
able to differentiate between, are you saying you don't want to really invest in this and do this and have some flexibility around the programs? Or are you saying you don't know what the hell's going on, but you want somebody to run it?
Mhm.
And being able to make that differentiation is going to make you even more hireable, because a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah, I don't just focus on the business outcomes. I've also been asking about like budgets that they've allocated to just the launch, if it's a net new community, like to the launch of the community, or if it's an existing one, and they have like clear business outcomes already like identified either in the job description or because they answered my other question well,
Mhm.
then I'm asking, what are some examples of the community person or team doing exceptionally well, then coming and advocating for more budget and resourcing, and like how is that conversation gone? Because I also want to make sure that like community can be a very big like impactful thing for business, as you said, Mary, but very few companies, I think, go to a degree of like truly resourcing it
Mhm.
exceptionally well. I mean, Webflow, for example, they have a $10 million grants program,
Yeah, they do.
and they
They,
raised
I was in
like
talks with them quite a bit about potentially doing something for one of their grants because I really like no code,
yep,
just the
I
idea
love
of no
it.
code. But ultimately, I was like, oh, I decided to try to go for consultancy and got two customers like immediately. So I didn't have the space to start a new community. But I
Yeah,
do want to say when you're focusing on that community and building the company value there, customer marketing and advocacy, especially driving reviews and references, are two ways to really make an impact on the revenue aspect. And so few people bring that up when talking about community. So just knowing that, and I'm going to send you a link where I talk about my approach to like 3 times customer advocacy through community and programs.
yeah,
But
I
just
love it.
knowing that and bringing that up, it makes people realize like, oh, you know what you're doing, you know what else is out there and what we can grow into, and that's fantastic.
As well as then like how I could partner with customer marketing if I'm not
Yeah.
necessarily owning it, but I can partner with them to support initiatives that they
Oh
are.
yeah. I logged into
I,
our community for one of my customers last week and within the last month, and we have low engagement. It's not run by me. It's low engagement because a lot of it is a support community, like 2/3 of it is a support community. And they're like, well, we want to do more engagement. Okay. I logged in and I'm like, in 5 minutes, I had a list of 12 people that would be perfect for advocacy. And all we have to do is be like, hey, you're already sharing your story. You clearly love our brand. Would you want to share your story further? Do a blog post. Just getting their feet wet is like that nurture process. It is so fast. Once somebody posts in your community, your customer community, to take that and turn it into an advocate, it's amazing, but people don't know how to do it yet.
I would equally say in that case, if it's like a support focused community, you could also do like co-created videos of like
Mhm.
5 minutes on how to do XYZ with so
Yep.
and so from blah blah blah.
Yeah. Well,
Like
they
build a
had
library,
somebody
stuff like that.
that was running the community
Mhm.
and was very protective over the community. And they were like, we don't let any marketing messages come into our community whatsoever. And they had no, like, I feel there has to be a balance.
Mhm.
Um, like if you're saying, oh, we're just going to run this community that it just gives back and we don't care. No, because leadership changes at least every 2 years. So that community is going to get killed if
Yeah.
you don't make it tie back to business metrics.
Yeah,
So,
both
yeah,
sides have to win.
what's
Business.
that?
Oh, I'm just a fan of like in community, I think it's the epitome of like win-win.
Yeah,
Every like the business has to win and the members have to win. It's just like sometimes you might have to budge like 5% one way or the other on
right.
some things, but you can't really go too far past that, where then like one side is going to feel like taken advantage of or left with like a really negative taste or impression in their like from the experience. But definitely like win-win. I think community is the epitome of it. And then when you start adding in like advocates or champions to then execute something for members, then it
Mm-hmm.
has to be 4 wins because your
Right.
advocates are part of the equation now too. So
See,
it's
you've
not
already
just
done this. That's what, I'm saying is,
Yeah.
as a community person, you've already encouraged people to make content and show their expertise, to do those co-hosted videos and things like that. You know how to make them feel good about that and give them a space in the newsletter. All you're doing now is shifting that from your big topic community to a customer and advocacy community. And it's just different terms.
Yeah. No, thank you. This has been really helpful.
Good.
I
Yeah,
would,
a
oh,
dumb
sorry.
question, if you permit me a dumb question. What's a community of practice?
Yeah. So a community of practice or interest is sometimes also what they're referred to as, is one where there's a common thread amongst all the members. So for example, Mary's community is a community of practice.
Mhm.
Everyone, for the most part, is in or touches some part of customer marketing and advocacy. But you can join Mary's community from any region, any industry, any company, anything else that some other types of communities might restrict you on. Also, customers or non-customers would be included in a community of practice, where then on the flip side, if you're talking about communities of product or customers, those are specifically around your product, advocates, support, best practices, templates, things like that, and less so of, hey, in Mary's community for CMA, we're going to have a tools channel, we're going to have how to grow your professional career in CMA as a channel, we're going to talk about building your personal brand as a CMA professional, XYZ other things that are more relevant to the person as a professional and helping them succeed. Whereas if your community is one of product or customers, you're talking mostly about how do you help these people win and be successful with your product. Whereas practice, it's only about how do we help make these people successful in their career.
Got it. Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay,
And
Mary,
if
would you
somebody
also
says-
say that that's pretty accurate of how you think about it as well?
Yeah, and I break down communities for customers even more to where it can be like a very product slash support approach versus strategy and education. Because so many companies have had a customer community where it's just support, just how do I do this? Okay, goodbye. And you have to really turn that into a strategy education approach to help with success and retention and all of that. So yeah, there's several different types of communities, and I like topic communities more, but you can definitely run a lot more value towards the company and the customer if you're in a customer community.
At least for me, it's something that I've, through my conversations, have been finding pretty exciting, is like almost the new opportunity to have a direct impact on the business in a very like clear potential way, versus some of the more, I'll say, like not abstract, they're concrete, but maybe not as immediate, if that makes sense, outcomes that a customer product focused community can impact than a community of practice. So yeah, well, unfortunately I do have to jump, so sorry. Thank you.
No, this was great.
Conversation
Thank you for
today.
getting on. I just posted in the community one of the things from the developer random channel that I'm on. They just have funny things like this all the time. But thank you so much for getting on, Joel. Have a great
course.
day.
Thank you,
Kathy,
Mary.
do you want to stay on?
Bye.
If you have just a couple minutes.
Sure. Okay. Yep. I'm gonna stop recording though.